where I have been happily finding a way to implement some of my built environment, our homes that are more integrated into the landscape. And I want to share some stuff that I'm going to speak to about what I experience right now, and then we're going to move into some things that are more speculative, maybe dream a little bit together, and I hope we'll have some time for conversation and interaction. So, but I do want to say one thing about the work that I did in Denver. Denver was a very different place when I was there back in the late 90s. It was a nice, small, big town. And one of the things, the urban core really had not been built out the way, if anybody's been there, it doesn't resemble the Denver that I know. And one of the sustainable communities is having density, being smart, really smart with the lands. We can design something fantastic over here, but if you have to drive 2 hours to get resources, that's a problem. And so what does it mean to be sustainable? These are questions that I don't have all the answers to, but we're going to explore some of these things tonight. So, I was hoping to get a little help with the slide advance. So I'm going to start with sharing what I was inspired by. When I was a kid, I saw this place. And before I understood land use, importance, water conservation, growing your own food, permaculture, all of this sort of stuff, I saw this place and I was amazed because landscape is Dr. Seuss. I mean, you walk around the city, there are no cars. It's all pedestrian and human scale. They have greenhouses, they're growing their own food, they are managing their own water. These are wonderful things, but I just love the built form. I mean, the way that there's a coherence to it.
Coherence, can you move to your back a foot, and that way we can get the video on the broadcast and more people can see.
Yeah, there was a coherence, continuity to the place, and yet it was very diverse and multifunctional. They were building things. They were building this city, but they were doing bronze casting. Before I heard of the idea of like micro manufacturing, and they had a Solari architect, and he followed the tradition of Frank Lloyd Wright, with the exception that he got kicked out because he differed quite greatly. Frank liked the idea of sprawl. He saw it as a democratization of everything, but I don't think he realized what happens. Like, for a while, when I was a kid, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, before I moved here. It just goes on and on and on. And if you can imagine a beautiful valley, if we had that kind of strategy here, which is basically what's going on, we're going to fill up the whole valley with houses. I've seen it happen along the Front Range, and people, I'm sure we all have our own stories. We've seen this. I've seen these beautiful pastures. We have cows grazing and trees, and then it becomes a hospital. This is the story of American development. This is a strategy, arcology, the merging of ecology and architecture, that sought to create a dense urban living environment to preserve the open space. And it really challenges us with a lot of ideas of home ownership. But what are we trading? What are we giving up? We all want our castle and whatnot out in the landscape. And if we all get that, the land is gone. So they also have some really compelling and amazing components. This little area was built around an amphitheater. They had live music. They brought people together. I think you all know how important it is. So they worked together. I saw people, making music together. And then here, the vision for how big they wanted to get. So those highlighted colors are that's what's built. They're hoping to build towers behind it, thousands of people. And if you can imagine a city, a community like this that is connected to another one with a vast expanse between them, we're saving the landscape from ourselves, really, and preserving. So I think I want to introduce this concept to people, to bring it to your awareness if it's not. Excuse me. And just a few more pictures. There's a site map. And I just love that there's no vehicular traffic. Personally, I'm a fan of bicycles. It's hard to ride a bike around here, but they have these huge gatherings of there's like 1,000 people in these malls. They would, when they're doing construction, that was a place that was sheltered. There was a workshop behind it. And this is their visitor center where they would sell the bronze bells and ceramics that they would make, and then, with a lot of other funding and a lot of volunteer work. That's how they were funding and building this community. And it was started in the 70s, still going today. So that was inspiring to me, and I saw that and I was like, oh my God, we don't have to live the way we do. And I thought, this is gonna come, this is gonna happen. It's slow to come, it's slow to happen, but that's why we're here, right? And when I was young, I was traveling around. I wanted to show this. Christiania is in Denmark, and it's basically, it was an army base that was taken over by free thinkers, whatever that means. People actually think for themselves, right? They call them hippies too. And 1971, they went in and they took over this place, and there's no police. They police themselves, they govern themselves. They have a free market. They make decisions collectively. And I'm going to speak to that just briefly, because I was also part of a couple of projects. Das Relational Shift in Hamburg, which was part of the Free Arts Department in architecture and art school. And it was a place where we had events, we hosted cultural events, dances, parties, anything you want to do. That and the pretzel factory worked. They were both collectively, we had to make the decisions and come to consensus, which was a new concept for me and very challenging. I got really frustrated after a couple of hours one time, and I said, can we just take a vote? And then, no. And my name was Michael back then. I said, no, Michael, this is not a democracy. Oh, shit. Where am I? Well, no, we're going to talk until we all agree, because if we don't, somebody's going to be unhappy. And there'll be dissent. And that was a big moment for me to realize that my way of thinking growing up in the United States, I had been indoctrinated to believe that this was the way to do it. This is the way. And I still try to keep that awareness. I don't have the absolute answers. I'm here to show you I experience what I'm saying about. So, but this place is really cool. You've got tulips growing next to dandelions, and people, the Christiania bicycle is a beautiful invention because they don't have cars. No cars going in. It has two wheels in front, and you sit in the back. And I saw people with construction material on bicycles. They're moving like CMUs. They're carrying the groceries, their kids on a bicycle. And I'd never seen anything like that. It was so amazing. How much more space we have when we get rid of the automobile in our sustainable communities. this is one place I would love to go, and I didn't go there. I haven't been there yet. It's wonderful, wonderful documentary about it. I love to watch it, check it out. I saw a hand. There's somebody who's been here, been there twice. What an amazing vision and a beautiful place that has been built. This is a model. Go to next. But this is real. This is what it looks like. There are hundreds. I don't know how many people are living there now, but it's founded upon these beautiful principles. One, nobody owns anything there really, and you can be a citizen as long as you contribute in servitude to the divine consciousness. And something that I started to recognize in these projects is there was when there's a community that had consciousness, that were conscious, that were realized this importance of community, change the community. We realize that we're here for a bigger reason, and we're all in this together. And this place has some really amazingly profound people working there and forward thinking, basic. They actually have a zoning. We know what zoning is in the West, in the United States, in North America here. We put the schools over here, the shopping over here, we're connecting with roads, right? They have a bit more of a spiral integrated court pattern, and I think we all know basic form of our blood flows in a spiral or in a spiral galaxy. There's something really profound to it. That's why I got a spiral on that light right there. Just to remind me, to remind us all. So this is a little off the wall, and I want to share it with you. This is actually a 25-year-old theoretical project of mine, where I wanted to transform the existing city. And so in this project, I was looking at this neighborhood in Denver called the Golden Triangle. If anyone's familiar with the neighborhood, it's between Spear and Broadway and Civic Center Park. It was in that area. There's also there are two remotely separated uses or functions. You've got the art museum on one end, and you have a church on the other. And I thought, well, what if we could reunite our art and our spirituality and literally fold the city in half, not compressing it, but keeping attention, keeping a space to allow to see how interconnected we really all are. And what would we do with the rest of that space? That we would introduce agriculture, because we instead of importing it, we would just do it right there. And so when I was in graduate school, I was exploring these ideas on how to practice architecture as well. Architecture is practice and intervention, because our society is greatly in need of some serious intervention. So I mentioned the idea of the importance of spirituality in community. And in doing this, getting ready to come here and share ideas with you, I started having many more questions come up that I really didn't have answers for. And how do we frame sustainability? Why our communities should be sustainable. And yet, is this part of the myth that we have been sold? You know, I think these are important questions. Are we running around with heads cut off? You know? And so how do we stay mindful of our connection with source when we're feeling this need to make dramatic changes? And how does our language, the way that we talk about what we're doing, get in the way of what we're doing as well? When I use the word nature, it all suddenly creates separation. Like, that's over there. I'm not part of. And yet I am. We all are. We are all part of this. And so I want to just bring these things into our awareness as these ideas. And lastly, before I change it, can we even realize what we're aiming for without a shift in our consciousness? And I'm sure many of us have asked that question. But, you know, we have amazing latent abilities. I read a book recently, maybe you've heard of Breathe or Breath, there's the author, and Deep, in which this author investigated and found that we can dive. I don't know if you heard about these divers that do free diving, right? I had no idea. Like, I've been breathing wrong my whole life. 52 years old, I learned how to breathe properly. So it's good to learn some new things. There are people who are diving almost 300 feet deep on a single breath of air. And it changes physiology. The things that we are capable, are we even aware of what we are capable of? Exactly. And so I would like to invite all of us to take a breath or two together. In fact, let's take 3. I'd like to do one for peace, one for equity, and one for unity. And in through the nose. We can change our just 3, so there's hope. And what are we going to build it out of? What is the materiality of our community? We're building with sticks, toothpicks, new growth. Anybody buy lumber lately? You see the price? I was fortunate enough to go to Peru about 24 years ago, and I took this picture. And this place is called, I know the name sounds funny, but it's pronounced Sacsayhuaman. I'm saying it correctly. And I was told that from outer space it looks like it's a shape of a jaguar. What the hell is this? Do you see any shelter here? Some of these stones are 28 tons. Every one of these joints is multifaceted. You cannot get a razor blade between them. There's no way this was built in 150 years, not by the Incas. We don't know how this is built. There's some speculation. I met some people over the years who've talked about the abilities of people to levitate stones with sound. And people thought it was crazy to dream of flying. There's an account of an Englishman who had been in Tibet who witnessed the Tibetan monks levitating a massive stone using trumpets and drums. And they're calibrated by distance and for the size of the stone. Apparently, that's what the reports were. And just back to that, you know, our late capabilities, something that we are capable without any augmentation of technology or not. I don't know these things, but one day we will be building in ways that we can't even fathom right now. We have the potential, whether it's evolution of our technology or consciousness somehow working together to be able to levitate and carve and cut stones because we're working together. Or we can manifest and raise rock and earth straight out of the ground. And it's going to seem like magic. But if we start to imagine the possibilities collectively, we can expand the possibilities in the future. There are monolithic figures that are all over the world, and they're still there. They're underwater. They're buried. And I love this quote. I'm going to paraphrase it. It's actually from a comic on the card. And it is fiction, but these characters are wandering through Mexico, and they come across this incredible ruin made in stone. And this character they call him a judge, and he says, and this is written in the 1800s, so, you know, they're always talking about men and women. But he says, what's true of one man is true of another. And he who reads will, he joins his spirit to the common destiny of creatures and will subside back into the mud, the primal mud, with scarcely a cry. But he who builds with stone seeks to alter the structure of the universe. And so it was with these masons. However their words may seem to us. You know, as above, so below. So sustaining the common dream, sustainable community development. You know, rather than us be scared with all of the threats outside to our environment. Well, I don't think we were put here to be scared. I think we were here to be playful, to be joyous. And that's where faith comes in. And that's the importance of recognizing the spiritual element in all that we're doing and being inclusive. When we're thinking about building community, we're not building walls. And the other thing, these are like the basic, really three super important things: ensuring the safety and well-being of all the community. That's basic care. And remembering or learning if we don't. We have a sacred covenant with the earth. All right, so if we're going to make something, sustaining a common dream, sustaining these goals, a community. What's going to sustain a community is having a common purpose, having a definite goal, some kind of economic engine model as we're building a bridge between where we want to go and where we are now. We can do a lot of wonderful things in permaculture, but we haven't yet figured out how to manufacture in a small, agrarian setting. And so it's really important that we remember we keep one foot in, one foot out as we're making our transition and building sustainable communities. That we're not severing ties, but we are doing something joyous and inspiring. The community of Oroville has a green belt around it, and it changed the climate. It's cooled, and it's more pleasant in a very humid and unpleasant area of India. And the residents all around there are asking, well, how do you do this? They want to learn just by doing. They're changing it's an infectious, positively infectious design. And so what we have community, think about sovereignty. We often use, in our language, we talk about management of resources. And it's like, okay, well, like it's a thing to be used. All right, well, no, I think that's one of those things that brought up about our language. I think trying to be thoughtful, become more in alignment, and where our words are aligned with our hearts, our spirit, and we're not going to get it right away. Okay, so we need to be nice and forgiving to ourselves and each other, but realizing that and trying to use being precise with our language. So we need some land. It's very much like the body. Ownership of land, stewardship of land. It's really to have a lease on a land and build a sustainable community. You have to have perpetual rights to it, or you need to have it's got to be sovereign. I even hate to use the word perpetual rights because the First Nation has been kicked off of all sorts of lands that they've been given perpetual rights. Access to water, which equate to emotions. And the reason I'm having these elements tied with physical is because so within, so without. And I want this to be as a holistic process as possible, right? So water, our emotions, energy, independent sovereignty, our passions, air, education, sovereign education, real education, and spirit and source. And what would this look like if we were to bring this into a more three-dimensional material form? What kind of opportunities could our sustainable communities, what could they have? The economic engine, right? Well, in permaculture, while we're farming already, what if we could produce enough food to feed not just that community, but the entire valley? What if that community is a healing center where people come to heal themselves? What if that community is a venue for music and dance and gathering? The one thing that I was told people in North America spend more money on than healthcare is going to concerts. Yeah, right? And that's fun and joyful. It feels good to move your body. Which, by the way, we got education, spiritual retreat. I want to invite you to stand up for me. You've been sitting here listening to me. So, why not stand up and spin around for a second? Just do at least one circle. Right. Bend your legs a little bit. Say hello to your neighbor. Say hello to yourself, right? All right. I've got, wait, give me another slide. I want to know how many slides am I? All right. I want to think, I have so many slides. I don't want to go on too much. I also had this great idea, I thought, to do a group meditation where we would vision something together. But I want to take a moment to check with you all, anybody, to see where you're at, how you're feeling. Do you have a comment? Do you want me to expand on something before I launch into another slide? Yes, Elizabeth.
You're wanting to build this community here in this area?
That's a great question. Now, every community in every location is unique, and so for the people or what it can support. So, and the environment is right. So what I see, what I envision, are a series of communities that are all networked together.
So what's the next step?
Well,
From this?
right. So, you saw this, the dreaming and the vision, scalable and connected. Okay. So, does it start in the backyard? Does it start in Crestone? Right? Yeah, it could. It could. Let's say it is. Let's say it is. Okay. So, yeah. So then, what is your question?
What's next?
What's
What's
next?
the next step?
Okay. Well, what we need land. And who are we, right? We need to define who is involved, okay? Yeah. These examples of, not counting the anarchists, they were nonprofits, okay? There was a nonprofit that was started, and they purchased the land. And so that is a starting point right there. Of course, let's go on, because it's gonna gets tangential to yes. Can you explain? So models I mentioned in this country, they're nonprofits, but there's in the Netherlands, there's a group that has started a place called Orchard City. I think there's a picture somewhere in this presentation. And they actually, it is a development, and I believe it's more of a corporate. There were people who had come from financing and real estate, but they were interested in sustainable goals. And so they did it as a development, and there are some developments that have been done, but
do you know about Wyoming? Wyoming started the LLC, so Dallas decentralized civilization, Washington, but not a state. So we do a hybrid, a land trust, not a nonprofit, it's a financial, and then set this down, some governance stuff, Josh, Howard, something.
Yeah.
There's actually new
Yeah.
models. They coexist what we've done for 70 years with land trusts.
Cool. Yes.
There's another model here in Colorado, which is an LLC co-op, which is created for cooperative ownership of whatever. And that's a possibility. I think the DAO is the distributor of Trump's organization, DL's now. That's where it's headed, but there's not a lot of practical, successful models that exist right now for like.
Yeah.
And I think probably right now the simplest thing is set up an LLC and then join with
There's,
I mean, what you're talking about is taking something like, so you're starting that scale of actually needing land, and needing like infrastructure. But the point is, we actually have all of those things. It's like, why not take infrastructure that we already have? I mean, it's really about people. It's not about this external world. It's about agreeing with each other to say, we all want this to happen. So why not all have a town that already has all this infrastructure? Of course, we can make it better. We can drain it and like make the plumbing like make sense and everything else makes sense. Forget about the 8 stars and like just kind of like Michael Tellinger's Ubuntu, you know, like using an infrastructure and just actually being first small town and saying, okay, let's celebrate each other's gifts. And it's more about an education of like, because it's very difficult to build all of this stuff. I mean, it takes a lot of energy. We all have to like come up with millions of dollars. It's like more about let's all just agree that we're all vibing the same way and like coexist.
yeah, I think, and that is a great ideal. It does remind me, and I'm a proponent of any strategy that works. That's when I was talking about architecture as a practice of intervention and how to repurpose our cities and the existing buildings. Another thing, we have these huge office parks that are abandoned. They're sitting around, and these huge companies, like even one of the people in Merck or whatever, they've got these square feet of commercial space, and they're spending like $7 million in taxes and not using that space. What if that were repurposed? What if the people in cooperation with the corporations transitioned where they could get a tax break, they could give it up over to the people. And these are the types of things where, you know, permaculture thinking of closed loops, of like, this is a problem, this is an opportunity. How can we apply that kind of thinking to in a bigger scale?
Another question, in your terms of scale, what do you envision, that eco-villagers actually need specific parameters for people share agreements, or converting a town into just and there's the other concept of like starting 10 people, 50 people. What's kind of your skill and scale?
How many people?
That's not a question, I'm afraid I feel like I could answer that. Since that's me speaking for other people, and saying this is the way it's going to be. And I think we've seen how that's gone. You know, I'm glad that you asked me that question. It is a good question. You know, how do we transition? We were talking about numbers of the dinner table, you know, when you get along, you can really relate to 3 to 5 people. Well, maybe if you know them, and then after that, something happens to your ability of dynamic, right? I've endeavored to put together this. What I was trying to figure is can we do this incrementally? How can I do this? Because I've been doing this by myself for most of my life. And, you know, I had people who were involved. They're like, let's get our money together. Let's get some land. We're going to build a house we're all going to live in, right? I think many of us have had this idea, and we're going to grow the And it's like, we'll have a van, so we don't have to drive. We'll have one van we share, will take us to the city, and take the kids to school or whatever. You know, it's like we're trying to solve all these problems. but there's so many things to solve, and we've already, like, back to who had the question, but why don't we just take the cities and infrastructure that we already have, you know? And I was, well, it's pretty hard to change a city. It's yeah, I love that. We can't even get a public transit to come up the corridor because the municipalities along the way haven't agreed on whether or not they want to stop. And so we've been planning since the 80s to have public transit come up the I-70 corridor. We still not have. Okay, and I think that speaks to the challenge of trying to convert the entire town. But I don't have a lot of time yet. I do think that public charters and having our own grassroots constitutional, like, changing stuff is a great place to start. But courtyard housing is potentially a model that I see as being very effective because it's land use, materials. We can really start to change the scale and the way that we're thinking, one piece at a time. These are a couple examples of how bad that's amazing. But go to the next. Okay. But I want to get back to the dreaming and the vision part. It's going to run out of time, all right? And these are great questions, but we're not going to solve them all in the next 7 minutes. Wish we could. That's what I feel like, yeah, let's do it. But in the last exercise, I don't think it's going to happen. So I see, I keep seeing this in different forms. It's a glass, it's like a glass, huge glass thing. I don't know why I've been seeing this, but it's a big indoor space, right? And I had this idea, like, what if this glass thing, what if over this tower, okay? And this is where we have aquaponic growth facility inside of this, and all of our farming. We've changed this. Think of this as a seed. I want you to take this with you, okay? And it could be in different shapes. We're going to grow so much food. This is, you see, this is where the food comes, and people come here to grow to buy their food. The people there, this is a sustainable community that live and people work here. And what happens around here is the micro manufacturing, textiles, arts, grocery shop. Where what happened in India where they started making their own clothing? Can we look at some of these models? We start making the things that we need here for ourselves and for and how the feminine be manifest in this form, and how might the divine masculine, because this, we talk about the patriarchal society, you know, being oppressive. It has been as destructive to men as it has been to women. And we need to honor each other in the divine, masculine and feminine, in all of us, men and women, and work together. And I'm about to run out of time. Last few slides. Here's some stuff they got built. Oh yeah, anybody heard of Coral Castle? About 5 minutes. Yeah. Hands. Who's? Okay. So Ed built Coral Castle. The Trump. Okay. Does that sound crazy? The one dude moved a bunch of blocks. Nobody knows how. Well, he said he learned how the Egyptians did it. All right. So this is a really interesting project. You know, people think of the Soviet Republic, Soviet Union. This is Soviet architecture. That was a housing project from the 80s. Huh, who knew, right? Yeah. This one's maybe a bit more feminine. Maybe not the best picture, but there's a great documentary about this family, the Hart followers. They built a cob house in the Arctic Circle region inside of a greenhouse, and they're raising their kids there. And all around their house is a garden. I mean, that's not exactly a community, but it's something that they built, and how we're looking at steps in the right direction and things that are inspiring, right? So there's some fulfillment of some stuff that got built. Now, let's just skip that. And then we have a legacy, and what is our direction? In this valley in the 70s, Michael Reynolds came here and he started building Earth ships. Some cool ideas, right? Love his water systems. It's like 3-use, and Earth is all around us. Now I know that the Earth around here is not ideal for doing rammed Earth, but as the material costs go up, I'm having serious conversations with and other people. What do we have? And mud, earth, hay, and hemp. I think hemp is huge. I think the potentials for hemp, Canada's on this. They're building. There's a car. There's a plane. It's fueled with hemp fuel too. I mean, there are parts in our cars that are made from hemp. It is amazing at reclamation and drawing toxins out of the soil. Yes. And so, realizing a resource-based economy, or perhaps, I don't know if anyone's read Braiding Sweetgrass, the sense of a gift economy. When you give to someone, the gift comes with there's responsibility to pass it on, and that's something that's coming. These are some things that would be really helpful for us to be able to stop having to use the word sustainable and just build communities that already are. One more minute. All right, so building sustainable community in your backyard. This is my backyard. And I was losing my mind during COVID, and I started digging a hole. I was like, literally, I'm gonna make a kiva. And then I realized digging in the alluvial valley here with all of that rock, no, I built a teepee instead. And I needed people, and I brought them to my backyard because nobody wanted to be inside together with this fear. But so, little steps, what can we do? Anything and everything. Hopefully we're going to be doing it together. I'm a dreamer. And, I don't want to be the only one, because it's going to take our collective dreaming to really make a difference. So thank you very much for listening.
And I do want to add, we have some tables out. I know there's a lot happening this week. This is what we call the Jedi obstacle course. People are like, I want to eat, but I want to see that workshop, but there's 2 workshops at the same time, and I want to soak. This is where your intuitive discernment comes in. And I say that partially in jest, but I say it partially in reality. Unfortunately, I had to turn away dozens of people who wanted to present tonight also and tomorrow. I think just seeing that this isn't just a countercultural movement anymore. This is the same awakening of the human culture on a global level. And the fact that we're all here as the first initiation of bringing ourselves together, I really love what you said, to ground. Not, if we want to hear talking, we can be on Zoom all day. We can watch YouTube until, we're blue in the face. Part of it is archiving this knowledge and using it as a tool to develop what we're calling, is Gavin here? Keep her mark real quick. Part of it is, and I'm not going to talk more about it because we have our roundtable tonight at 10, is why I'm here, why I was here 30 years ago when Hannah and Maurice Strong started the BACA project in Crestone, is to build not just find Boulder. I met amazing people in Boulder. I met Addie from New Revolution Radio. I met Claire, who's going to present in a moment. I met Brandy and the owners of the Elixir Bar and the farm stand and incredible community of way people doing stuff. And then I go to Taos and Santa Fe, same thing. And then I go to Peonia, same thing. And I go to Sedona and Cottonwood, Flagstaff, same thing. So part of my specific focus is not just building synergy, but actualizing potential. And we're doing that because we're going to be building a global academy for regenerative culture in Crestone. Something like the world has never seen. I say that with no hype. I say that with the intention of the 20 or 30 people I'm working with and already engaged with. One of them, Sean King, won't be doing his presentation tonight. His daughter wasn't feeling well in Crestone, so he left. So we're going to keep the focus in the room for Claire. I just shared that people, and even the people who might not be clear what their calling is and what their real skill is and what they want to do. Everybody is part of this collective awakening. Everyone does have a very unique and special role. Whether it's doing cacao journeys, whether it's doing one-on-one dialogue. So part of the work, really why I am here, and all of this time and energy for this event is not to say goodbye, say hello, and how do we move forward? How do we articulate and execute and activate and actualize the potential just in this room alone is incredible. And part of this weekend is to know we're not alone. So I just wanted to share that. I want to remind people that at the end of every evening, to make sure that we're in coherence, everybody will get a voice, we'll pass the feather, we do our round. I know it's the first time people are like, oh, I'm tapping out. I respect and appreciate that, but we're creating space for people's voices all to be heard besides those who are scheduled to present. So that'll be happening this evening. So next, we have a couple more presentations this evening. And I'm glad to have some local folks. I want to just acknowledge our next speaker here is going to be Claire. And Claire is going to navigate the technology. She's going to be speaking on Introduction to Conscious Feeling. Sean will not be doing his presentation tonight here in the Europe. We're going to stay in the room. And then after that, we have a Merkaba and light body activation with Wonder Bob over there. Nice round of applause. He's a low.
We sit in master's retreat consistently, and we pull down the energy and we deliver it to you. So that's what we're given at this event. So it's going to be quite energetic, magical, scintillating. So happy to be of service.
And that will be at 9 o'clock in the year. And we also have from Boulder someone I met. And you know, I have this fascinating. Who's here? Who has heard of Dominator? We have someone who was part of the Down and Her project. He's in Boulder now, and he's going to be educating us about chlorine dioxide and beyond MS. And I want to just acknowledge my brother Eduardo. And we haven't hung out a lot, but every time he walks in the room, his spirit and his gentle essence just speaks. So I want to thank him for making the trip all the way down. So again, just to reiterate, Claire will be here from 8 to 9, and then at 9 you have the option of the workshop with Eduardo or to go with Wonder Bob into the year for his Merkaba and light body activation. And then we're going to stay after that in the dome, in the year for the roundtable. But seeing that we're all improvisers and innovators, is David here? Do you want to stand up for 30 seconds? David does incredible work. He was supposed to do something earlier. No one showed up, but we're flexible. He has something really special to offer us as part of our roundtable tonight. Do you want to share for a moment, please?
I am a sound healer, my sound healer, and I work with gateways and natural algorithms. And I read the book about the gateways around coherence. And tonight, we're just overall needs. And what's happening on the planet is we're vibrationally waking up. And that is something that's unique and beautiful. And I will share with you a meditation called Three Hearts. And that is just bringing the earth, the celestial energy, and our heart all together. And yeah, just going with the flow, y'all. Glad to be here.
And I want to thank you. You came all the way from what, Taos?
Yeah.
So there's people from all of these little four-corner power nodes between the Sacred Four Mountain and the Hopi. So I just want to make sure everyone knows what's happening. Again, I want to say, as we did our Ho'oponopono, if anybody felt confused or there's incoherence in the field or whatever happened in our process to become more coherent, I apologize. We're going to have more people here tomorrow coming into the field, and at that point, we're here for the rest of the weekend night. The equinox is coming tomorrow. We're starting the day with the overnight guests with the water blessing in the springs with Elizabeth Harold and Shireen, and Madeline was invited, so it would be a very special honoring of the waters and the feminine. You know, so many people come here and they eat. We're in the springs and we take and take. So the idea is a moment to acknowledge and give back to these sacred waters. So that's all I want to say. And with that, I'd like to introduce Composer Claire Thompson.
Thank you, Michael. Oh man, I was expecting to be in the yurt, so this is a much different experience. But this is really excited to you all. The title of my workshop tonight is Introduction to Conscious Feelings. I love that I get to go after that really beautiful talk about how do we create these regenerative communities. And I agree wholeheartedly that, gosh, we have spent centuries developing this infrastructure and building schools and hospitals and towns and houses. And I don't feel like we're using them quite appropriately or to their highest potential. In fact, I know that we're not. And I'm really stuck with this point of wondering why. Why is that? What is that link that's stopping us from using the have? Who here has been involved with a regenerative project? And just popcorn style, what happened? Or did it succeed? Did it fail? What happened? Too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah. Yeah.
Unclear vision.
Unclear vision. No roadmap. Yeah. Yeah.
Bad ideas, a lot less actual.
A lot of ideas, a lot less action. Relational incoherence. Yeah.
Not having resources, because sometimes the people that are interested with the ideas haven't been plugging into the traditional economic systems that don't have available.
Limited resources. Yeah.
Power struggles.
Power struggles.
Unclear.
Unclear agreements.
Hidden agenda. Person.
Hidden in this. Wow.
Unintegrated
Unintegrated trauma. And so how then, once we go to the land and build the thing, how do we relate to each other in a new way? Because just like you said, there's no maps for where we're going. There's a part of me that really wants to look at like where we have been, tribal societies, things like that. Tribal societies didn't have the internet. Tribal societies weren't able to communicate with like 20 different people on 10 different platforms in countries all over the world. So we're in uncharted territory. I like to use the metaphor, it's like being in New York City with a map of Detroit. And I'm like, I know where I'm going. That's not true. And the only way that I'm going to know what's next is to put the map down and start looking around, start getting curious, start asking questions. A big part of what I think we need to do is build this relational coherence and find new ways of relating to each other so that we can effectively use the tools, the resources, recognize the power struggles, go for those interpersonal dynamics so that we can actually create the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. So with that, introduction to consciousness. A little bit of background about the work that I do in the field of research that I've been studying. It's called possibility management. There's a big community in Portugal and one starting down in Brazil and some in Florida and on the West Coast and now in Boulder. And a lot of this work is focused on radical responsibility and recognizing what your traumas are, how do you own them, how do you move through the world with them, and how do you step into initiation so that we can become actual realized adults and not playing this like, you know, snickering games or the drama triangle, if anyone's familiar with that, victim, perpetrator, rescuer. That's extremely detrimental in any relationship, and we all do it. I know I do. It can be really fun to play. So in this work of possibility management, we focus on 4 feelings. There's joy, anger, sadness, and fear. And these are all pretty taboo feelings or emotions, at least in modern culture, right? I mean, maybe the worst feeling, there's no bad or good feelings, but fear, I get the sense that fear is maybe one of the most dangerous. How does society, modern culture, view fear? What's your perception of someone who's afraid?
Weak.
They're weak. Yeah. Misguided. Yeah.
And they become aggressive.
They become aggressive when they're afraid. Yeah. What else? Unpredictable. Yeah.
And also they can't think because they are kind of frozen.
Yeah. There's like frozen. They're paralyzed. How do you move?
And it's sort of contagious because then it sort of shocks the other person who's trying to.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, there's a tiger in the room. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
there's an angry woman.
Yeah. It's contagious.
So then fear then might get.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a map that we have of fear. Right? It's contagious. It's paralyzing. What is the actual? I feel fear standing in front of a group of people speaking into a microphone. So there's fear present. What then is the purpose of fear? When you think about like moments in your life when you're afraid, what do you feel? Or what's the purpose? What information is it?
Safety.
Yeah,
Protection, yeah, yeah. Survival, yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it's terrifying out there. I walk streets of Denver and I am so afraid. I'm walking through a natural disaster that we have created. And if I try not to be afraid, then I can repress that. Damn, that's scary. That's really scary. So there's fear. Let's move on to the next one, shall we? How about anger? Ooh, yeah. I get a no. What's modern culture's view of anger? Aggressiveness. Yeah.
Dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Crazy.
Crazy. You're
Out of control.
out of control. Yeah. Uninvolved. Yeah. Yeah. So there's our old map. That's the map of anger. When you feel anger in your body, in your system, what is that trying to tell you?
Something violated your boundary.
Someone violated your boundary. Yeah.
Somebody marginalized you, like, or diminished you as a being. Like,
Someone diminished your being. Yeah.
if you're not worth it, or you're not deserving, or you're
Yeah.
not, she's not marginalizing us, like ghosting us.
Yeah.
You're
Ghosting.
turning over your power.
Turning over your power.
Because if you allow someone to take your anger, then you give them the power to bring that emotion.
Mhm.
So it's really an opportunity for you to go, I'm not gonna be angry over that, you know?
Yeah.
Your problem is my own.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. You get to draw a boundary.
Those are going to be a bridge from more powerless emotion to more exciting, like bridge.
Yeah. So I already see it starting to happen here. It could be a bridge. So you're already looking at what is the purpose then, right? What is the purpose of anger? When you feel anger in your body,
Motivates change.
motivates change, grounding, fire, passion, right? I'm gonna stand up for something.
It's showing your own body.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the first step out of apathy.
It's the first step out of apathy. Yeah. You're moving. So there's anger. How about sadness? How does modern culture view sadness?
Something that that's not.
Something to fix, yeah, make it go away. You'll get through it. Give it time. Scream. Yeah, let it out. Get rid of it.
Transform this. Yeah, transform it.
Transform it.
Realize it, see it, okay, feel it, honor it.
Yeah,
But I have to transmute and transform. That this state of being.
you have to change it.
To
Yeah.
change it in a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
I love sadness.
You love sadness.
Yeah.
Why do you love sadness?
It's the gateway to, for me to wholeness.
Yeah.
Mm. Sadness.
And sadness
Yeah.
should be, really embraced.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to be sad.
Yeah.
Breathing.
Breathing should be embraced.
You can't come to compassion.
Without sadness, you can't come to compassion.
If you don't understand sadness,
Yeah.
you cannot come to question.
Yeah. So sadness also shows us what we love, right? What we care about.
Sometimes it's grounding.
It's grounding, yeah.
Sometimes if you're not present, it's grounding.
Yeah. Gives us an opportunity to slow down, to be more present, maybe even to witness the beauty. And then here's an interesting one, joy. What does it look like to be fully expressed in joy? Laughing? Well, I'm curious, if you go into a grocery store, full joy,
People think you're hot.
people think you're on drugs.
Yeah.
Or
They're crazy.
Or they become jealous because they're like, wow, I don't have that in my life.
Right, or
Or-
jealousy.
Some people don't let them feel joy because there's so much sadness happening, and so they actually don't feel joy.
Don't
They
feel
feel
joy.
guilty
There's,
feeling.
right, there's too much bad things going on. How can you feel joy right now? Right. So even too much joy, we can't go there. But what's the purpose of joy then? To feel alive. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's natural state.
The natural state.
Yeah, it's how you know where you're on that. It's like
Mhm.
compass. It's how
Mhm.
you know it's like a true north of your personal
Yeah.
experience.
This is the way. This is the way. Yeah. So here's some new ways of looking at anger, joy, fear, and sadness. So what I want to do, because I love being a sage on the stage, but I want to do something different here. So I'm inviting us all, find yourself in groups of 4. Groups of 4. And let's see, if you don't have a group of 4, raise your hand if you don't have a group of 4. Is that, you could do a group of 5, yeah. Let's do that, great. Great, awesome. Okay, so the invitation here is, let's see how vulnerable this is about building trust. This is about building intimacy and allowing yourself to be seen. And I think this is one of the qualities that will support us all in building the regenerative villages as we move forward into the future. So, the person with the longest hair will go first. We're going to go through just one sentence, but each for the feeling. So you're going to say, I feel angry because, I feel afraid because, I feel sad because, I feel joy because. And see if you can drop into this exercise and see what comes of it. So first person there goes first, and then we're going to go clockwise after that. And begin.
Anger, fear, joy, sadness, right?
Anger, fear, joy, and sadness. Yes.
Yeah, we've been for years.
I'll start. For a while. I can say.
You guys. Yeah. We've got a couple groups of five, so if you want to do a group of. All four emotions. Yeah, yeah.
Subject nature. All the places being heavily attacked behind the scenes interests, but it's all smoke. So, although
So if your group is done, raise your hand. Great. So if you're done, let's just hold space for now and maybe share amongst yourselves how that was. But as we come back together as a group, we'll share.
So, yeah, we run cafe. Well, rising along the right was. But you run the cafe. I mean, I'm still interested in what's interested, but it works. Yeah. They're going, yeah, they're gonna activate former horizon, new branding. Yeah, there was a big community pop up, where's that? I mean, I'm like, it's vision on the property. Yeah.
So slowly start to close your circles. And if you're not quite complete, I do invite you to continue this experiment after the workshop and as we move through the weekend. But in that experiment, how was that for you?
What we, it's funny because like, where some of us are like, oh, I feel things now, but as if we kind of each thing that we all share, we could resonate with it, that maybe
Yeah.
didn't admit to ourselves or what we're technically aware of, but we're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
so there's definitely a lot of what synergy with how we all, different completely, but how we all resonate with them.
Yeah. So you all have different ways of relating to those, but there's some like, oh
There's
yeah.
definitely like a very underlining, like silver lining to the whole, very similar.
Yeah, it builds intimacy. I was not involved with any of the conversations, and yet I feel closer to all of you. I can feel it over there. How else did it go for you? What did you notice?
I love feelings.
You have a lot of feelings. Yes. Great. Keep going.
Oh, people powering through like difficult situations,
Mm.
hearing them have a difficult situation, but staying, and not just turning and going to someplace that you're not dealing with it.
Yeah, there's
Powering through.
perseverance.
Yeah.
Hearing people shares and being like, yeah, me too, exactly.
Yeah, there's a resonance there. Yeah.
I noticed that maybe these are things that I feel quite often, but I don't really speak a lot about.
Mm.
That there's a aspect of myself of like what I would say like a keeper of my trap. And these things don't come true. So there's an aspect that felt actually challenging to put into words besides just feeling in my body, but to actually speak it out loud is very different than what I'm learning by live.
Yeah, to actually speak it out loud. Yeah, thank you.
Insight to the platform and therefore closeness.
It gives you insight and closeness to the other person. Yeah. Yeah. How else can we build community? But, you know, getting insight to those who are around us, getting to know what they're afraid of. If I know what you're afraid of, I know when you get that frozen feeling, I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. When I know why you're angry, I can stand with you and say yes or no. Let's take a stand for that. So that's my invitation after this workshop, and invite the possibility of bringing this home with you. Maybe there's a relationship in your life where you feel like you're like just tiptoeing around it a little bit. And there's a great opportunity there to say, hey, I feel afraid right now because I want to be in your life more and I feel nervous when I'm around you. That could be really dangerous to say. Or how dangerous it is to go to your partner and say, I've been angry because of this. And not from a place of throwing arrows, but from a place of love. Like, I want this change so that we can relate to each other better. Yeah. I really think that with this type of work and so much more, we can start to transform, you know, the thoughtware that is operating the hardware that is our infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that can help us shift into the regenerative villages that we all deserve. Anything.
I had to leave for a little bit, but wow. Just coming in and feeling the room and the level of coherence and dropping in that you bring is very palatable. So I just want to thank you for our emerging friendship and connection and collaborative potentiality. So thank you for that. So everybody doing okay? All right. So much to just absorb and process. We're almost to the end of our first day of our marathon. And we have some very appropriate and, I'm really excited about that. Again, I want to send out some good intentions to Sean King, who lives in Crestone, is a brilliant developer of sustainable villages and conservation biology, and part of our really this emerging, what we're calling the ARC, this Alliance for Regenerative Communities. And even though it's an initiative of the Earthstock Foundation, it's something that is purely something that's being thrown out as an initiative to inspire communities to come together to create that circle. There's completely no hierarchy to it. And it's about people stepping up. But we actually say it's a round table of lions who don't want to spend the majority of their time cat herding anymore because things are collapsing so quickly that we have to move forward with this level of visionary design. So we have an hour left, And then we're going to ask if you have the energy, and you can just kind of lay on the floor and process. But we, end of every day, we create this round table space so that people want to just be heard if they need some support energetically. And we have the benefit of global musical sound master healer being through David here, who's willing to help open up that space with all of us at the year at 10 o'clock. It won't go long because we know we have an early morning. But I want to invite people just to either, if you need to process yourself, but for those who are still having the energy to drop in as a group. I know tomorrow there's a lot of high level stuff happening with the quantum healing, and there's other people here doing energetic support through herbs and massage. So again, we're going to safe support and acknowledge each other's gifts and what we're bringing. So at that, I just want to introduce the next two workshops. One will be here and one will be at the yurt. And
Has anybody been to the yurt?
Yeah, it's really nice.
I could use this. We're going to the yurt, but I have no idea where it is.
so I'm yeah.
Get your guides.
There's a heater in here.
So I want to identify two people again. I just met him. I know he's a very foundational community member at Crestone. He does a lot of amazing work. I've seen his work in town. Being a newbie, I already said, like, wow, this brother he's holding a lot, he's bringing a lot. So I just had the honor a couple of days ago to meet this gentleman after someone had to cancel a family-related situation. And we met at the Cloud, and we started to talk, and he's just showing up, and he's showing up with so much to offer. So I just want to acknowledge, hopefully, my new evolving friendship with my new neighbor, me being the new guy in Crestone. Wonder Bob will be doing a Merkaba activation. Do you want to say really quickly what you'll be doing?
So this is not going to be like dreamy or anything like this. This will be like aerobic. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the Shakti from the mountain into our bodies. So we got to prepare our bodies to receive that. So this entire mountain range is a great grandmother dragon, is what we call her. Yurt or sacrum right here. Eyelid at her heart. Sandage is her throat. Mount Blanca is her ajna, her third eye. So we go and hike up to her heart. We go down in bodies, follow her instruction, and then she tells us how to deliver it to you guys. So that's what we're up to. There's a geometry of consciousness called your Merkaba field. We're going to activate that. We're going to do some other stuff so that we can be able to receive. So it'll be prana. So and thanks, where's Claire Fire? Where's the fire? She's the Claire Fire, just in case you want to know. So really grateful to all of us. So yeah, we're gonna. Somebody knows how to get to the yurt, so we're gonna follow them. So come and join us.
So we'll do a little procession. We're gonna do, which song are we doing? Okay.
Before you leave, let's put the space back together as such and maybe give yourself
And hold on 1 second, because the other workshop, which is going to be right here, I want to, Eduardo came from Boulder. Eduardo, would you come up and share a little bit about what he's going to be doing? Because they're very important and medicine for the time we're in. And it's information that he wants to empower you with. So this is Eduardo from Doña.
Thank you, Michael. I'm here today to talk about community health. So we're in this process of transformation. What happened, the best thing that happened in the last 2 years, so we know what it is to get the opportunity to awake everybody into what is the reality that we need to feel, because we're being checked. Anytime they try to pull us back, we have new tools and new alternatives. Honestly, 3-4 years ago, we were all kind of in dormant state, doing projects, trying to do things, but times are accelerating and we're accelerating faster. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit of Damanor, which is a community This is a group that is working on community, and Daman for 45, 47 years has been a model national for how a community can be sustainable in the long haul. So I'll talk a little bit of what we're doing. Talk about how dreaming is important. And we have a new process of dreaming that will bring this reality into community. So very briefly on that. But my main focus will be on how do we have tools to pretty much cure, I won't say anything, but keep us into the path to have freedom of health. Look at our own alternatives for building in community, our ways to have a healthy and prolific life, mostly to a product that is so simple to make, so inexpensive, that is being persecuted everywhere. So no one wants to teach you how to make it, how to acquire it, and how to share it, because this is for sharing. It's something that, this is how we're changing the dynamic. So health in our communities is a very important step to start building our social, economical, production and sustainable health or elements of our community.
So he'll be staying here. I would encourage you, it feels like you're kind of this magic minstrel, and lead everyone over to the yurt. Who is leading the way with Wonderbob? Okay, so everybody from Eduardo's workshop, we will be going over to the yurt after Eduardo's presentation also. And a little bit closer to. Yeah.
How fun is that? Wow.
So whoever wants to move closer.
That's better.
Hey, getting closer, it's fun to see things from the distance. Perfect. Okay.
I've been involved with Damanhur, Colorado for 7 years. So who knows about Damanhur? We have heard of. You have heard of that?
Not the Damanhur in Italy.
Yes.
It is, yes.
I just heard about it last week. Last week, that's synchronicity. We love that. So Damanhur is a community that's been like 47 years. They had the mission to help humanity to discover their own potential through mostly through art. And art is a way to manifest the community and bring them together and learn to work with each other. So part of the main focus on Damanhur on the last 30 years is being awakening nature, awakening the forces of nature for helping us to create a better system for us. Community and working community, we understand the projections and the reflections of each other. So what I'm here today is because I'm very interested on bringing Damanhur to Crestone in a very specific way. So this year we're studying the School of Dreaming. Dreaming for many indigenous communities and cultures, dreaming is a real estate. It's not like you dream at night. It's a reality. It's the world of dreaming. So how to make a balance between the world of the reality that we think it is and the world of dreaming. We're all dreamers. All these conferences about dreaming. So how to bring those dreams into the highest potential is to connect with the first step is an individual process to be more connected with dreaming capabilities and improve or enhance your potentials through understanding not just the dreaming, but being in the dreaming state and what it means for all of us. I'll take it on a second step forward, which is what if we as community were just engaged in a common dream world. So that is pretty much the way to separate us from the reality and help to accelerate the process that we're working. So that's something that is coming. So if you're interested for the Dreaming School, it's in damanhurcolorado.com. Starting this fall. It's a probably 6 months course. And it's open to everybody in Boulder in person, can travel from different places, or
Yeah.
Damanhur is DAMANHUR, and then Colorado.com. Sounds good. Okay, so from that, there are other schools. There is the School of Mystery School, Alchemy School, the School of Arts, and the School of Healing. I get connected to Damanhur through the Mystery School classes, just as a regular pedestrian walking, and heard about that. Someone pointed to that and took the classes, then took alchemy later on. Some of those courses were here and some in Italy directly on the temples and all the infrastructure that they have for this kind of workshops and classes. The thing that is I'm bringing, and this is what I'm here specifically. The second aspect of what I'm here is to talk about this little thing here. I'll explain what it is this in a second. And this is something that I've been working on conference and things like that. It's important. I go to conferences and say nothing. I was just at the halls and what is this? And people get curious. So this is your lab at home to help you to not only cure or kind of help to heal in many of the problems that we have today. It's a chronic illness or epidemic everywhere. But also any kind of infections that you could have, either bacterial, fungal, some of those. And in general, what it's about is a process that it was discovered many years ago. So before I go through this is your lab. This is the only thing you need, one jar. And you have your health at home. And I explain you how to do that in a brief detail. So who have heard about MMS? Raise your hands. You, of course. MMS. So who use MMS? Who use everyday MMS? No. It's kind of harsh. It's you use it and then over time you say, oh, my stomach is hurting. So that's my experience when I learned about MMS like 8 years ago or 9 years ago from a friend who could not contact. He was always in person. He gave me the material. Never cell phones were out. And what is this mystery about? MMS is a substance that pretty much was discovered by accident in a trip that Jim Humboldt, one of the developer of that, used a component which is sodium chloride, which is a salt. And he used it to because people in his team in Africa, a gold mine.
We did. That's what I was doing.
So they got malaria. They couldn't do anything. They were in the middle of the jungle. So this is normally used for water purification. And so they were purifying water and they on the water to purify. And in a couple of it was really awesome because in those terms, it's really hard to know what happened with this. So later on, he discovered what was the process inside that. Basically, what happens is this is sodium chloride. It's not chloride. Sodium chloride is salt, regular salt. This is chloride. It has a molecule of oxygen instead of being regular salt. And when that water that has a pinch of salt mixed in the stomach, the hydrochloric acid creates a reaction. I'll show you the reaction in a minute. That reaction releases chlorine dioxide, which is pretty much the substance that we're looking. Chlorine dioxide is a gas, and this is important. It's two atoms about when they get into the bloodstream, they separate. The chlorine mixed with sodium, and it's eliminated as salt. And oxygen is it's a molecule of oxygen. It's as powerful or more than ozone therapy, which is you can do ozone therapy. Sometimes it's tricky. Not everybody has availability to ozone therapy. Is also hydrogen peroxide, but it has better chemical properties. And in general, what it does is create an oxidative process. So who here use antioxidants or think that you have to have antioxidants every day?
Does blueberries count like this?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do that because the body generates a radical so any fruits, exactly. So for all bodies produce not the best food or the best. So those radicals are eliminated with antioxidants. So, and it's very important. The difference is oxidative therapies is that it is not oxidative as the radicals, but it's an oxidation of burning things. So oxidation, if you have extra oxygen, it will burn viruses, bacteria, fungus, and it will help your body to get also additional supply of oxygen that the cells will use in the mitochondria for whatever function is, to get rid of a bad cell, stop a mutation, or create new cells. So that when people start studying, I guess, the alternative medicine, started to see the benefits of this chlorine dioxide in the blood, notice that pretty much the amount of oxygen in the bloodstream. And this is very critical because you can put a pure oxygen tank in a person. Many people had that problem, as you know. But the lungs are not capable to absorb more oxygen because it's an osmosis process. So no matter how much oxygen it helps, whoever has an emphysema or a problem with capturing oxygen, but it's not feasible to get kind of double the amount of oxygen that you could have in the blood. And with chlorine dioxide, you can do that right. So it's very simple. So you have the reaction of the sodium chloride with the hydrochloric acid. Some people use acid because it's very unavailable. Hydrochloric acid is available, but for MMS, it has to be food grade because you're ingesting that. But I will explain pretty much how that works. So suppose that I have, let me do something very quickly. This is the sodium chloride. As I said, it's a salt, and you see that kind of little yellow is because it has this kind of chlorine inside. And if let me do something very quick. I'm just gonna do something. I'm just gonna do all these drops here. I'm not gonna count them. This one, and this is hydrochloric acid. Who use uric acid or is familiar with that? It's for cleaning.
Like crystals and stuff.
Yeah, you find a gallon in a convenience store for $8. And if you reduce the proportion of water 5:1 of this, you get a decent amount of chloric acid, hydrochloric acid for what you need. So I mix just 1 or 2 of these. Let's see what happens. Yeah, put it in the wrong place. Oh yeah, put it in the wrong place.
It's like,
Oh yeah, that's cool. We can see. That's a chemical reaction like everything you can see in the school. So it will keep turning amber. So this is MMS in some capacity. 3 drops each of this sodium chloride and hydrochloric acid. And when it gets, look at it's getting even darker. It's like an amber, like a nice color of maple syrup. When you get that color, this is more than, don't even try this, someone will be really upset. With 3 drops of each, if you mix it with a glass of water, that's what you have. And that's what the traditional MMS is. Very simple to do, very kind of a quick, immediate reaction. And when people is really sick, people with any kind of degenerative process or malformation of cells, I don't want to talk about illness or things in general, but you can search. You can go to a web server, a web search, and figure out how many. This is snake oil things. Yeah, when people for 3 years for snake oil, and still they're talking about it. So I don't think it's that snake oil. Something's right. And in 1 year, people define whatever. It's not working and it's not. So I don't know if some people have good.
on malaria, does it? Right.
Yeah. So someone, I don't know if someone is smelling, my eyes are just kind of getting like a cutting onions, but I don't know if someone have a sense of some sort of smell.
Maybe pass it around.
Yeah, you can pass it. Don't smell it directly.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Yeah, go
Yeah, it's like chlorine, almost was chlorine.
That's what it's called, bleach. Remember the bleach that people were kind of turned down because, oh, this is bleach. Well, these are Ascorbic acid is a bleaching drug. It's a bleach agent. Clorox, those things are bleaching agents, and this also has chlorine, so it's a bleaching agent. Don't put it close to your nose. Well, it's a gas. What we're saying is the gas is already being released. So that's what happens in your stomach. When you, now this is kind of a boosted because it's extra hydrochloric acid, but Jim Humboldt just had only the original salt for that, and that's how it works. Yeah, so you don't drink this because remember, this is muriatic acid in a lower concentration. So you don't drink it. When you do MMS, you use food grade hydrochloric acid. This one is not perfect, it's chemical, it's industrial use. And this is your lab. You get a real, regular kind of a preserved cup. Yeah, it can go. And this cup that I had there running around goes inside with a batch of water. So and there are tons of videos and things explaining how this works. So this reaction is happening there, and the gas is captured there. Even if we, what is that? Someone drink it or? What do we have? We can leave it here to see how the gas keeps. We can leave it and see what happens if we want to smell it anyways. Suppose that we have water here. So that is gonna, so, but you'll see that kind of a foggy cloud will form here. So that's how you do it. People get who are curious to learn on their own, or later we can ask questions if you want on those details. What happens is when you do this batch and this water turns yellow, there is a second batch to get it more concentrated. That concentrated with a big funnel. I forgot to bring another like a kombucha bottle that has like a tight seal. It's carbonated. Whenever it's carbonated, then you know the cap has a seal. I'll show you. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, kombucha jar.
Yeah, bottle that there's a cap. So from this jar, which is kind of a little bit inconvenient because of white mouth, just pour that inside very quickly and put it in the fridge. It lasts a year or more.
Yeah.
And no one does MMS on a daily basis, right? No, you won't do it. But with CDS, you can do it on a daily basis. And this is maintenance, kind of preventive. And many people who in the last 2 years have been using it because this is very popular in South America and Central America for those purposes. Notice that they went to the doctor and said, "Oh, my diabetes is gone, or my arthritis is gone, magically." Chronic diseases are always the kind of the cool factor, the cleansing process, and but also prevention. So who thinks that this virus maybe with something else? So we need to be prepared for that. So that's how I get involved is very funny. I used MMS like 5-6 years ago, but again, it's kind of getting a little upset because remember, we have these things that we put in water, and there is a salt, the sodium chloride, and there is a small amount of extra hydrochloric acid. So we're putting all those in the body. What is happening here is this gas start evaporating and get dissolved in the water. So at the end, we toss away whatever was in that little jar. So this is like a distillation jar for making, to capture the chlorine dioxide gas. So that's the key principle. I want to keep it at that level because that's what it explains. When someone say, what is an NS and what is CDS, what the difference is that to get hydrochloric acid to be released inside the body. And with CDS, you got a concentrate of the gas that you dilute it in water, and when you drink it, the gas goes straight into the blood system. So that's pretty much the concepts of how chlorine dioxide is made, and the uses are where you can find.
So you would, sorry, this is something you would do every day.
You could do it every day.
You're right.
Yeah. Some doctors recommend to do like a 20 days and then boost again antioxidants. So this is a key thing. Remember, we talk about antioxidants that are attacking the free radicals, and this is an oxidative process that brings more oxygen. If you're having antioxidants, it's gonna kind of cancel it. So you have to have a time between your antioxidants and you're drinking. You can prepare a bottle and drink it during the day, like a regular drinking bottle of water, and you can do it. There are other ways to do that. There are fast ways to do that. Some people, this is interesting when people get really sick or is one of the things that really is we need to think as communities what's happening with pharmaceuticals in general, even if they're off-label and genetic medicine that no matter how many Nobel Prizes are being awarded to them, it's still a medicine that is controlled. Even if it's over the counter in many countries, they decided to take it out of all the pharmacies. So this is the problem with say there are solutions for people find ways to counteract all these emerging illness. No one handle because we don't control the market. So with this one, you just get a salt that is used for water purification in all the systems. It is widely available for other purposes. The hydrochloric acid or the citric acid is highly available. You don't need to worry about it. And today you find the cost is really ridiculous. So I have provided a lot in the last year. You see that you see how it's coming? See the difference? I don't know if you can see, but it's like a yellowish around. Instead of being clear, the gas is already contained here. And if it was water here, it would be a kind of dissolving that. Sorry for the digression on that. Because those elements are very available. We need the thing. This process, as simple as I have explained it, it could be difficult for people. But everyone in the house or in the neighborhood, they know that it's a smart kid that is good on chemistry or someone who likes to cook and can manipulate things. So that's what we need to use those resources. Don't tell grandma to learn how to do that. Get it there ready for them or someone who is really good. Yeah, actually, your kids can do it. If you're good at handling things, it's perfect. So no worries. Key consideration: this is a gas, and you see how it sounds. So there are some security aspects of how to handle that. So always it's good to have ventilation because those gases. If you drop this bottle or break this thing with this, you better leave the room indoors. It's going to affect your lungs very quickly. So that's the only. What is not different to anything else that you sell detergents or things in the house and you break a picture of bleaching. Exactly. So the other thing that I want to comment on this is just because it's so available and can be shared with everybody, it's okay to buy the kits. The kits are how I started. I went online and bought a little bottle, 4 ounces of sodium chloride, and another little bottle of citric acid. $50, whatever you pay for that. it lasts for a year. So even $50 is nothing. In real cost, if you do as a community, it costs that cost, it probably can be reduced to 5% in raw materials for the same amount. So you can, with $100, you can have a supply for 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's something that, well, exactly. So when, but it's better to find for people who is kind of promoting or helping to sell that is their labor, is their work. And even those amounts are, I guess the prices are a good price. It's just when you, as a community thing, but when you do that for everybody and have it as a part of the farmers market, something. What if, or someone just decided to have a job for that, create their income. So being cheap doesn't mean that because we're doing that, the community people put on that's the value. At the end, the value that we create is our labor. So think on about it and bring it into your communities. There are like 20 people here or 15. If I'm teaching 15 people, if you teach 4 people, there would be 60 people doing this. And if that one of them take one is better than exponential. So that's my commitment to what I'm showing this is that this could take over in a very quiet way. We don't need to promote any words. We don't need to tell them or fight with others. We just get there and don't have to depend on too many of the pharmaceuticals or medicine that is allopathic and whatever. Just give you a straight, brilliant surgeon doctor that will or arms, get an accident. Those are doctors that we need, someone to repair our bodies, not someone to heal. We could heal from everything else. So, any questions?
Yes. What if you have somebody in your family that's taking 10 or 11, and not antibiotic, but pills for this and that and the other thing, and they start drinking this? Okay, the conflict is, does it ruin the potency of the pills, or is it heightened, or do you stop taking them, you know?
Well, if the pills are poison, we'll get rid of them.
There's no contraindication.
So you can do both.
You can, the important thing is just time it differently
Yeah, different times.
the antioxidant.
He's taking pills every 2 hours. So it's like, fine.
I put them at night.
No, he's sleeping.
Oh, that's so
He takes
before.
that to a point.
So the way you could do is before going to bed, take pills before going to bed early on. Start at that and try to do also a little bit, like a 1 glass before going to bed and 1 glass in the morning, and delay start with pills. If the protocol allows us to do that. So that's a way, and also because there are pills for something and then something to help to handle the appeal, and all these things are kind of connected. Just watch the way how it's done. In terms of procedures, that's a good point to go around. You can take it in multiple ways. So there are people that are trained to do IVs or vitamin C or vitamin D. There's no people in the US that will fear to put IVs with chlorine dioxide, but it's kind of a quick turn around when someone is really critically ill. So it won't happen here for a while, but there is the poor guy IV procedure, which is using enemas. So an enema is a very inexpensive and easy way to do kind of bring it into the bloodstream quickly. So for that condition, you could do also an enema because if you drink at night and say, well, I'm going to take a glass and now I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or whatever. So it could do an enema every other day. a small enema. It's not like an enema that is like this 5 gallons of
Right,
water.
right.
It could be just, it could be a cup of water.
Right.
It could be a cup of water. And do it for 10 minutes. And then just get. Yeah, but just for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it's another way to introduce an easy. Talking about enemas, I guess, you don't have to answer, who does enemas? Who does enemas? Well, no more. You see?
Instant relief.
Is that?
Instant relief.
Yeah, no, but what I'm getting to the point is not judgment on us. Because we're more.
So, I'm thankful for that.
No.
If I
This
need
is
something
my
fast, I
experience.
understand.
This is my,
Yeah, my father's a gastroenterologist. So weird.
yeah. And so this is my experience. When people get really sick and they ask me what to do, that they're really critical, they start having CDS, and they say, well, like, I'm very function is thinking worse because it has a real impact directly. So you have a problem there. Exactly. So can you try an enema? Because it's an enema. Never. So it's because this is prevented in general in the community is a good practice to get people to get familiar with enemas because in certain circumstances it's probably a life-saving because it works as an IV. And pretty much if you put it with a how to call it, the signature or IVs, so you can do that exactly the same. And you don't have to clean it because that water is being absorbed like a regular saline solution in the body. As an enema, you can do that without because no doctor will do that.
Would you do the same, like you just said, you would do, like maybe you would do 3 drops, right? 3 of each?
Yes.
1 and 1.
So this is the difference. And you see it's turning more yellow, right? The glass itself, all the gas is just kind of moving around. So when you do, normally you do, instead of 3 drops, you do 5 mL of each, the sodium chloride and the hydrochloric acid in 250 milliliters of water. This 250 could be divided in 25 portions and will create 25 quarters of liters of water. So pretty much you have in those 5 meals in the 2 batch process, you get like a supply for 25 days. If you drink 1 liter a day, which is kind of recommended, some people even less. So just by doing this little concoction, you have the supply for a month, pretty much. And
what I meant was, would you doing, say you were gonna do an enema?
Oh, yeah.
Like, would you make it stronger or is it the same?
Well,
or?
again, it's not in the mix. You grab a portion of that, like 10 mL of the final solution that is here, and mix it with the water you want. Like 1/4 or a cup of water, kind of a syringe or enema, something quick. You take 10 milliliters of the sodium, the solution of the chlorine dioxide into a cup of water or more, depending on that. So there are many protocols. It's something that there are a lot of, yeah, exactly. And there are many forums. Our forums are even bombarded with 1,000 comments a day. So it's Telegram mostly. There are many ways now to get educated or start learning how to do it or how to apply it for different conditions. So what I'm saying is that the enema itself is a very good solution in terms of IV administration, but it's not possible. Do you have, sorry?
I was wondering, hydrochloric
Chlorine dioxide.
Well, hydrochloric acid.
Hydrochloric, what was the big
The gastric
COVID,
acid.
the big COVID cure?
Oh, no, that's a
What is that?
hydroxychloroquine.
Totally different thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quinine derivative, but it has chlorine, hydroxychloroquine.
So that was just,
But it's, there's a study that says it works. There are many,
Usually it was used with ivermectin, and
yeah,
it was used in tandem. In fact, there was a cocktail of about 3 drugs that were used really effectively with the name of the country.
yeah,
But the-
azithromycin, and then you got zinc.
and all of they had contained like the number of deaths to a real minimum, but it was suppressed in the news.
Yeah, exactly. So because it's even if it's a very cheap drug, in the US, you need a prescription. And even if a doctor was brave enough to give the prescription, the pharmacist will stop it in many states. So you cannot deal with that, even if it's, and in many other countries were off label or even over the counter, but also over there, they kind of remove it from the shelves. Pretty much. Pharmacists to take it out. So this is kind of a cooking recipe for people to really, and there are many forums and many historical recollections of people who is being cured from very chronic disease, even terminal disease, or very risky conditions. Other
So
questions?
we should, if we were interested in making this ourselves, we should probably, I hear you saying we should get a recipe on the internet.
Yeah. And there is a site, you can take notes of this. This is a good video. It's called the Universal Antidote. Antidote.
Universal Antidote.
Yeah. It's a document that talks about MMX in general. This, I'm not sure exactly who was the first person to get it. There is a physicist in Germany that from German that has kind of made it very popular and projected all over. His name is Andreas Kalkin. Kalcker. Andreas. Andreas. Kalcker. And he pretty much shows in videos how to do that step by step. And that's how I learned it. I was at the beginning of COVID, said, well, this thing is, what are you going to do with it? And early on February in 2020, I said, well, I had MMS before, and it's good for bacterial, viral, anything. So I went to the Jim Humble website, and he had a post said, we don't know if it's useful for other viruses or conditions. So, but we haven't done any research, but we're starting to do that. And at the same time, Kalcker was already working in that, and he needed in terms of corona or whatever is going on, and became very popular.
I think he used it for the one before, and he had success, and then so he already had data that he could use. This H1N1, you know, this.
Well, there was a study of the NH1. There were few studies that were not, they were made. The thing is, in a pandemic, they had all these observational studies to say we have these people that is dying, and we take these other people, and no one died, but we need to everyone. There's no control, so we don't know what it is. So, but those are doctors who say, I don't care. I just want to try whatever they need. No one in my clinic died, so who cares? That's not how science works these days. It's not about saving people, it's about proving that this thing works or not. And although this is not something that will harm anybody, which is the important thing. So, and many other studies can happen after that. The thing is, well, Yeah, the toxicity of this one is very low. So you get more toxicity from coffee.
Like if you took like, if you drank a liter of it, you know, like, I mean, there's a dose, yeah.
Yeah, it's called the DL, the lead LD50, you know, dose percent, a little dose, 50% of the people will die versus those who don't. You know, they don't do it on humans. They use animal models for that. But there is the LD50 is 294 milligrams per kilogram of weight.
Okay, well, that's a lot.
You,
Yeah, that's.
and you're talking about the concentration of this is 3 parts per million. 3,000 parts per million is a concentration of 0.03% of a gas that has in weight, it is almost nothing. So I made a calculation one time. I think you need to drink 10 liters of this. If you drink 10 liters of pure water, your body almost you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of this concentrated solution to get into the LD50. But if you
Concentrated.
what's that?
You say 10 liters of the concentrated, not the concentrated.
Wow, so it's really safe.
What's that?
It's really safe.
It's extremely safe.
This doesn't taste good.
Well, in this, it tastes better than MMX
Yeah.
because it doesn't have the residues of the salt and it doesn't have the residues of the hydrochloric acid or the citric acid mixed into that. So it's really flat in terms of, so it's like a pool water. If you go to a pool in town, it has chlorine, it's like I'm having a little bit of that. This is yellow. This is that kind of golden beautiful yellow. Keep it in the fridge for time because it's a gas, it evaporates. Room temperature is a gas, so you always want to keep it cold. And actually, with the light, this tomorrow, if we leave it at sunlight, it will clear up itself. Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Great students.
Once again, I want to thank Eduardo for coming all the way from Boulder.
Yeah.
I will say they're peaking out over at the Europe. I know people are ready to tap out, but we've moved the chairs to the outside of the Europe. And we're going to have David just do some work with some sound. So it's a very graceful way to wrap up today. At the Earth, once again, I want to thank Eduardo so much for his knowledge.
And if you want my information, I'm happy to type on Telegram or signal or email, whichever you prefer.
Yeah. Soundboard. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot of scientific stuff because they're looking for solutions. And knowing what they know about the reality of consciousness, they are guiding into that, developing that. Who had the idea? No, this was in the science. So they will. It's amazing. Oh, good. Do you have one? There is no compact.
You started talking about.
Day one.
That's what it's from.